So I just wanted to just ask you, Nelba, in the kind of first question, just something about how you feel right now. And I would love to know, and I'd love to tell you, because I feel so full. And I just wonder, how are you doing?
There are full moments, there are joyful moments, and I feel good that this is a joyful and full moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I tried for many, many years to make a baby, and it didn't happen. My eggs were old, they just were not trying to cooperate. But I love kids so much. I just love kids so much. So all these kids are my babies. And I think about all the kids that we've lost to gun violence. Your Anna Grace, all the souls of those kids in Newtown, the kids in Parkland, all of the kids. And I just wonder, what don't we get about this? Like, what is our problem? That we don't get that guns kill people.
I think there are some things that are so unimaginable, that are so horrific, that even though they happen all the time, we don't think they can happen to us or in our community. Mm-hmm. So we live in a consistent state of a bit of dissociation. Mm-hmm. We live in a consistent state of denial. So that's why you see that every time it happens in a community, the first thing someone interviewed will say is, I didn't know it can happen here. Right? So we have to, actually dissociation isn't bad, it gets a bad rap.
Sometimes a good dissociation is a good thing.
We have to disengage.
Yes.
If we were engaged all the time, it actually wouldn't be settling or in any way honoring of our central nervous systems. But kind of going too far on the other side, I think it's just too hard for people to think of, and we get stuck, right? We saw what happened. We thought if Newtown, if there was ever going to be a moment, and we should have never thought that. Every life gone to gun violence, it matters, right? So it shouldn't have taken a Newtown, a Uvalde, every single time it happens, whether it's in our street corners or, in shootings that don't ever make the news. But I think it's just because it feels really hard. But there are many groups doing the work, making headway, who have made headway since Newtown and since Columbine, and we cannot afford to lose hope. I think when we do that, we're done.
I agree, absolutely agree. And so just this last week, the different kinds of violence, right? The police shooting and the teenager shooting, and the feeling like I'm not of hopeless is not the way it goes in my body, but it does go in my body of a kind of relentlessness. Mm-hmm. That evil is relentless. That violence is relentless, that apathy, in a way, is relentless. And I just think to myself, how do you, because you're also relentless. One day somebody told me I was relentless and they were trying to insult me. I was like, dude, I am so relentless and so glad you know. So you are relentless. You and Jimmy, Isaiah, but I'm going to just say you in the public square, in the way you speak and be, your good morning tweet, your good night tweet, where you bless the ones who are grieving. I mean, I just watch you, but I watch you as a woman of color being relentless and persistent and consistent in a way of owning the horror and also I'm alive. How do you do that? I mean, it's just amazing.
That's a really big question.
I know. Take your time. No, how do you do that?
So our first kind of encounter with gun violence wasn't in 2012. My first encounter with gun violence, I was 5, right? I have an ACE score of 9. If you guys know what ACE is adverse childhood experiences. If you don't know, I would consider kind of doing some looking in that area.
We should have you come do something.
Yeah.
That's right.
So adversity was not far away. It didn't come in 2012. I don't think much about your life after tragedy. Who you are changes. It just reveals character. So that persistence was ingrained in me from, being very small. I also believe in the power of the weird, right? Our walk looks very different than many other families. And this journey, even when there are collective tragedies, is really individual. is really individual. Oftentimes we have tragedies in communities, and because they're 26 or 30 or 50, you think of them as a bunch, and they're actually not a bunch. There are some things that are shared, right? Like that loss, like the tragedy, like the grief, certainly the injustice. But one of the ways that we help families is when we attend to their individuality, right? So for example, if you're coming in to help to a community, something as simple as how you define family, right? So a lot of the help that came to Newtown is like for family, right? Well, I'm Puerto Rican, my husband is Black. We have a very expansive view of family, but we were not able to help those people in our families that really needed or connect them to resources, because that was a narrow definition that was held by many of the support systems that came after, right? So if you are defining family by first-degree relatives and you're talking to us, it's not gonna work. We won't have what we need. So a way of persevering is by honoring the collective and also honoring your particular unique journey and knowing that that's good and has value too. And I think because I was a therapist before, I think about this a lot. And our benchmark wasn't to do all of these other things, although we have done many other things. Our benchmark was to stay alive, to honor God, and to stay married.
That's a good goal. Stay alive, honor God, and stay married. Yeah. There is, you tweeted this and we saw it, the verdict that came in the Parkland case and the, let's say the substantial financial conversation that came in that case, both of which have rocked people's worlds. How is it doing in your world?
I have to clarify because there's so many shootings and so many verdicts. Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Parkland verdict.
Oh, I was really brokenhearted when the verdict came out because I'm attuned to the pain of families. So my response is to the pain of families. So it seems like what we do after tragedy when there is bad news is there's two kind of angles. There's the response and support systems that's care for families, and then there's the activist side. Both of them are really great, important, needed, but sometimes there's not enough people on the support for family side. So I immediately, after the Parkland verdict, saw people giving all kinds of opinions on other things. And I think it's great to have opinions on death penalty, on this, on that. Those are wonderful to have. But in that moment, when I saw families inconsolable after the verdict, I thought it was maybe not the most appropriate time to come out with a position statement. I thought the first thing we could have and should have done collectively is wrap our arms in prayer around those families. Because again, I worry so much about this collective trauma, this collective burden, and our ability to survive, right? Every time we lose a survivor post-tragedy, because they weren't able to hold on, I feel it in my bones. Because we can do better for those families. We may not be able to stop all of the gun violence tomorrow, but at the very least, can we be better for families? Can we have systems of support that actually care and uphold? Because I think we can build those while we do the work. So two teams, and maybe sometimes they go like this together, and sometimes they're separate, but we need enough people on both teams.
Care, support team,
and an advocacy team. Yes, both of them very, very valuable.
That's right.
But sometimes the other side is missing.
And louder, right? The louder.
Yeah, like I've been to events, honestly, just kind of activism events, where I have been pushed. I've been pushed or elbowed because somebody wanted to hear a speaker. And I'll say like, hey, what are you doing here? And they're like, we're here for the families of Newtown. And I want to say, you just pushed me. You just pushed me. Like, we can't advocate until we know people. So I encourage advocacy to also have a nexus of relationship, right? It's great to think big ideas. Fantastic. But sometimes the ideas and the positions is very, very different than having to live it. Ask somebody what it's like to live it first.
Snaps and snaps and more snaps on that, Nelba. In our community where we have people who have survived, where parents have survived the shooting deaths of their children, either, heads of the police or, on the corner. I wonder about those parents. I wonder if this sounds inappropriate, I just ask your forgiveness in advance.
Bring
But
it.
I wonder about, like, there's some moms in Harlem, and these are not really famous moms, right? And then, there's famous moms, and I'm famous moms and dads. And I wonder if church communities know, or let's say, even like the why, the places, the institutions that give public love, let's put it that way. Do we know, Nelba, do we have enough resources? Do we have enough skills? Do we know, you're a therapist, do we know, are there turnkey resources? Are there places that we could refer people to so that, 3 people away, the extended family, who knows that Margaret is still grieving and seems depressed and maybe even suicidal? Do we know enough about how to help people?
I don't think that we yet have a toolkit for the church. That's actually one of my dreams, to help build that out, a toolkit for the church to respond to gun violence, not just when it's a community that is getting a lot of coverage, right? Yes. There is nothing wrong with wanting a return from our investment in our energy, in our time spent. There's nothing wrong with that. But if, I say this all the time, if we only want to send teddy bears to Newtown, and we're not really considering sending teddy bears to LA or Harlem or Hartford or anywhere else where there's gun violence, oftentimes people will say, how can I help you? And sometimes I have a response and sometimes I don't. And when I don't have a response, I'll say, there's probably someone who's been impacted by gun violence where you live. Help them. Help them. So I don't know that we fully embrace, when we continue to treat gun violence like a spectacle. It needs to be a spectacle in order to get any attention, right? First of all, our numbers need to be high. Right now, let's be honest, if you kill 3 people, that's not really gonna make it in anything. You need to do 25, you need to do 30. We're upping the number, right? Because we are, and I'm gonna hold the media accountable to this. The way they frame gun violence, that they're not saying loud enough, this is not acceptable, right? And that often we are called to tell a story. Like, people often just want to talk to me when they want me to tell them a tragedy to triumph story. And I have resigned from that position. I did used to do that. That was the only kind of notch available to me, but I just kind of gave that up. I don't want to tell a tragedy to triumph story. The triumph is we know that one day we get to see Anna again, and that our son is doing amazing. He's 18, he's a senior, he's very handsome, he's really smart, he's looking for colleges now that, my husband and I are still married. He's in his 14th year of higher education. He got his doctorate. Like, there is triumph, right? But our family will never be whole again until we get to heaven. And it shouldn't be that my daughter's face was missing from this choir today. It shouldn't be that I had a little girl drive all the way from Connecticut with her mom, who asks all the time, the little girl who read scripture, Chelsea, I wish I had met her. What was she like? Instead of being able to be her friend. It shouldn't be that way.
Amen. That's right. And every single one of those lives matter, right? Not the white lives, not the suburban lives, not the big clump of lives, but every single lost life.
Can I tell a story?
Please.
Okay, so it's December 14th, 2012. We lose our daughter in January, right? We're not from Sandy Hook. We had just moved there 4 months before. 3 years before that, we had spent in Canada. And before that, we were near the city, close to the city, the capital of Connecticut. In January, I read, and I'm technically not allowed to drive for many reasons, but traumatic grief being one of them. But I read in the paper that a bunch of moms from our capital city are gathering together to hold the feet to the fire of our local politicians, because they want to know why all these resources are going to Newtown when none of them have been available to them. So they are holding a rally. So Nelba Márquez-Greene got in her car. She wasn't supposed to drive, but I went to the rally, right? Because that's my neighborhood. That's near where I went to school. That's where my community, our communities were from. And I said, I'm sorry. And everybody was surprised to see me, but what I wanted them to know that it wasn't us. We weren't asking for all this stuff. The world was descending on us. But I just said, I'm sorry, you're right. Like, how do we align, right? And that was a month in. So what I know about most of the mothers, if not all of the mothers I've spoken to in this 10-year journey, is that we're all in together. Ain't nobody feeling like my child's life is more important. There's a sacredness among us that is quite holy, and we care for each other. I have pictures. I've been on vacation with Trayvon's mom. Like, we are a community, and that's very important to me.
It's so important to watch that, right? The non-compete, the we are supporting, we all see each other. We just met two moms from Mississippi. Jared's Heart, two moms from Mississippi are in a new group together. I met on the weekend. I don't know, Nelba, maybe a last question till you can eat and rest.
Okay.
Is, the election's coming, and I'm sorry, I'm a political animal. Middle's a political church, and one of the things that I keep trying to get my clergy who think I should lose my 501c3 to see is guns is not a partisan issue. It's all good, babe. Guns is not a partisan issue. Like, guns should not be in the hands of people to kill people, like, period. That's what I think. So guns are on the ballot. I wonder if you could just speak to us about where your heart is at on things that matter right now that are on the ballot. Like, just you be Nelba Márquez-Greene and tell us what do you see that's important for us to think about as we go to the polls. Now, but we say when you go to the polls, you're taking everybody with you. So we're taking Anna Grace to the poll with us, and you, and Jimmy, right, and Isaiah. What do you want us to think about when we get to the polls?
Well, first of all, I can't remember what year it was, but there was a year that Obama was running against McCain, and we took the kids to vote. And when we got there, they both started crying, like sobbing, and we're like, what's wrong? They're like, you said there would be a race, and this is not a race. They actually thought there'd be like runners, and we pulled up to the school, and they did not see the runners. They were, look, where are the runners? That's what Isaiah was crying, where are the runners? Like you. And the next day, my husband is in tears. Obama wins. He is in tears talking to his father, and this is a historic moment. And Anna walks in with sucking her thumb. She goes, what's the matter, Daddy? And she's like, he tells the kids, and he's like, President Obama has won, and she sticks her thumb out, and she goes, I wanted John McCain to win. And she was like two. She was like two. Like, there was no reason for this. I think it's just because she was contrarian. But, it was just the weirdest thing. I wanted John McCain to win. And we're all like, this child. But this is not about, for me, we cannot allow for Jesus to be hijacked by something that we know is not of God. A movement we know is not of God. There is an entire force out there trying to hijack our witness, our love, our support, our Jesus for something that is not of God. And I'm not going to be moved in being or be distracted from what I know to be true of him. And that's kind of where I am. Despite my daughter's, conviction for, I want John McCain to win.
Maybe she saw something in John that we didn't know.
Yes.
I don't know. No, but I'm going to send you my last week's sermon. I'm screaming, we ain't got time. We don't really have time to let somebody take our Rabbi Jesus. We don't have time to give him up. To the forces that want to pretend that they are coming from the same place.
And we're weakening church.
Yeah,
we're weakening church. We're weakening communities. We're weakening our witness. We're weakening ourselves and each other when we do this. So for me, this isn't political. Mm-hmm. This is just, we know. This other stuff we're seeing is intentional, is strategic. It's meant to discourage. It's meant to monetize. It's meant to spread fear. It's meant to spread so many ugly things, and I don't want to be a part of an ugly thing.
Amen. This is Nelba Márquez-Greene, and we're so grateful that you're here. Thank you. Thank you. someday you'll be watching this because we're going to put it in the world and we're watching it. Nelba's going to tell you where you can find the foundation. To the camera.
Hi. It would be my honor. It would be my honor if you want to send to the foundation, the Honor Grace Project, we have so much stuff we're doing. But also look for the voices and the foundations and the initiatives of those moms in neighborhoods near yours or that aren't getting the media play, and support them too.
And it would be our honor if you would join this movement, middlechurch.org. If you want to be a part of it, it's right there. The door's open for you to come in exactly as you are, and it's one-stop work. We love us some God. We're trying to do Jesus' work in the world, and
They have good music.
we have awesome music and amazing children, and we believe that faith has to be about the people, which means it is political in that it heals the world. Right? Not political as in, let's storm the Capitol, but political as in, let's try to heal the world. So find us at middlechurch.org. Big love to you. Bye.